falling under attack. A mighty sucker punch came flying in from somewhere in the back. Soon as we
There I am. All right. Good morning, Linda. Good morning, Kim. Good morning, Genevieve. And yeah, I'm running late today. I actually wasn't going to do a show at all. Good morning, Dottie. I have a massive headache. I don't know. I haven't had a headache like this in many years. I don't even get headaches. I might get a headache like once every, I don't know, decade. And I woke up this morning and I had the most massive headache. And I'm like, there is no way I'm going to be able to do a show. But I had everything together. So I'm like, well, at the last minute, I kept thinking, well, I'm gonna do a show on Saturday and not today. I'm gonna, probably try to take a leave or something and get rid of this headache. Good morning, Suzanne. I'll probably see you later if I get rid of this headache. My good friend Suzanne Lungo. Anyway, I'm running late. It's gonna be a fairly short show. I have to end by 9 a.m. because I have some work I need to do. But either way, I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap. Off to a rough start this morning. Again, was good. I thought, it might be kind of neat to do a Saturday show. I haven't done that yet, and but I will get past the headache. I will power through, and we've got lots to talk about today. So why not? Good morning, Lori. Allison said, "Have you had your furnace filters changed?" I don't even know where my furnace is, or the filters. So no. And good morning, Tammy Jerry Hoover. And that could actually be why I have a headache because I haven't been able to breathe through my nose for probably, I don't know, 3 months. And so yesterday, I'm like, I can't take this anymore. And I went and I bought, some of that prescription strength nasal spray. I don't even remember what they call it. And, I can actually breathe through my nose this morning. So apparently it is allergies. And that's probably exactly why I have a headache. It's probably a sinus headache. There's actually air moving through my sinuses. But enough about that. Enough about that. Then I was kind of joking with myself yesterday. I've been so busy with work. Yesterday I took literally an 8-minute nap. I had 8 minutes to take a nap. So I set my alarm for 8 minutes. And when you're really tired and you sleep for 8 minutes, you can actually dream because you're literally that tired. And it was the funniest thing ever. And I thought about all of you guys. I dreamt for my whole 8 minutes about Mark Zuckerberg, that I was at a party and my friend Suzanne here was there with me, and Mark Zuckerberg was there sitting at the booth with us. It was pretty funny. Story for another day, but it was funny. Allison, hire an HVAC company, come do it. Yes, probably the cause. Probably so. And Linda says changing the filters could help with the bills. Yeah, I had like a 70,000 watt utility bill this month. Good morning, Scott. So lots to talk about today. I will get the show on the road. Enough about me and my headache and sinus issues. It's Friday, man. I need a Friday, even though I work all weekend. Still happy to have a Friday. Good morning, Jay. Change your filters or risk spending thousands on a new system. Yeah, and it's possible my filters have been changed. I don't know what goes on around here. I don't do the work. Terry never even went to the moon. Well, Terry, we're going to be talking about that here in about 2 seconds. Well, maybe 2 minutes. Some of the things we're going to talk about today, we're definitely going to talk about the moon. It's Friday. Why not? I've seen some interesting videos lately. We know that the Department of Doge, of course, are going to lay off 10% of the NASA workforce, and they're going to be doing the deep dive into NASA. And you wouldn't think NASA would have any strange spending or unnecessary bills, but that's not true. There's a lot of waste that's going on at NASA, just like every other department. Good morning, Ken. And yes, welcome, Cash Patel. All of my FBI friends are absolutely ecstatic, as well as you, Ken. For again, people who don't know Ken, he was once the Marine One pilot for Presidents Reagan and George Bush. Happy to see you, Ken. And Dottie says, I have to change my Intake filter every 30 days. Well, if that's the case, then I'm way behind. So I'm going to work on that. There's 3 furnaces in this house, and I hate to say it, I've never seen one of them. I don't have the faintest clue where they are, but I'm gonna look. I think they're under the house, but I'm not sure exactly. I know there's air conditioners here too. I don't know where they are either, but but that's not my job to figure out. Good morning, Annette. So we're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about the moon. Did we ever land at the moon? Did we? I don't. My thoughts are. I'm leaning towards no, but what do I know, right? I'm not a scientist, or I'm certainly not an astronaut. I'm leaning towards no. We'll see where you guys lead after I play a couple little clips for you. We're going to talk about Obama today. Who can have a Friday without talking about Obama? Suge Knight, of course, Diddy's front man, former record executive who is now in prison, has made some pretty revealing accusations that Obama is actually on not only the Epstein list, but has also been to P. Diddy's parties. So, and then a lot of people are saying, hey, maybe that's why there's so many stories right now that Obama and Michelle are on the outs. Many people believe they're not together anymore. I don't really care, quite honestly, but I do care. Is he on the Epstein list? Is he on the P. Diddy list? I mean, the man has pretty well done a good job of staying out of scandal. And, we'll have a deeper topic someday on Obama because, I hear his code name is Renegade and he's truly a CIA operative. And now that, as crazy as it may sound to some of you, I think it's absolutely true. The man came out of nowhere. I'm from Chicago. Never heard of Obama before, and nor has anyone else pretty much that I know. So good morning, Cindy, a friend from the past. Good to see you. Good morning, Karen, Rob. So hopefully you guys are all having a good morning. We're going to be talking also about rare earth minerals. I've been saying all week we're going to touch base on that. Does Ukraine have rare earth minerals? Are they just trying to be another bargain for the United States? Mr. Tutu Man, snake oil salesman Zelensky, who has really, really gotten on Trump's last nerve, by the way. We're going to get into that. And, I've been saying it. It's happening. I know you don't believe me. We have got to start changing our pattern of thinking. We've got to realize that the world changes and we have to evolve with it. I still continue to say that we are going to break away from NATO. Europe is going to become our adversary. Russia, China will become our allies. I know it's hard to believe right now, but we're going to get into that and why I continue to think it and why my suspicions become stronger every single day. Because guess what? NATO and allied countries have 3 weeks to decide. Are they with us or are they against us? What will they decide? We'll be getting into that. Jay says, Chicago politician corruption, capital of the Midwest, and taking all of our tax dollars, Jay, all of our tax dollars. So we're going to get into some of these things. We're going to start talking about the moon because, what exactly is going on here? No, I want you to listen to this guy first, and then it makes you wonder, did we ever have the technology to reach the moon? Was it always just a big sham? Because if you remember back then, we really needed the American people to embrace NASA. So is it possible that all of this was just make-believe to force people to support NASA and to support the United States government and to think that we won the space war versus Russia and China and some of these other countries? So we're going to look at a series of clips here.
In a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
When you said that just now, did it sound stupid to you?
Kind
Yeah, kinda. Just a little bit. Okay, so we had the technology back then in the 60s, but we don't have the technology now. I mean, why would that be? Why did we have the technology then when we barely had electricity, in all of American homes. We had the technology to go to the moon, but we don't have it now. And we are so far advanced now that you're telling me we don't have the technology to go to the moon. It makes no sense. And I'm not even going to get into the different astronauts and their take on things and what they have thought has or has not happened. And if you see the film Fly Me to the Moon, it's you could think of it as satire, you could think of it as the real story. Did it really happen? And how did we have cameras on the moon? And take a look at this.
I'm going to step off the left now. It's one small step for man, one giant leap. So, I guess you want to do it again. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Korsky.
So, take it out you want. That could be just somebody could have filmed that in their backyard and just said, oh, that's NASA. They didn't really go to the moon. But I mean, come on, think about it. The technology we have now far, far, far surpasses any technology we had back then. You're going to tell me that, and of course, if you listen to Buzz Aldrin, it's hard to say. I've seen a lot of really chopped up clips by him. I've never gotten the full story of what he really thinks. And I think we all know that the video we see is absolutely not taken from the moon. He himself has said it's like an assimilation. There were no cameras. No one was filming anything. They didn't have that technology at the time to have a camera, transmitting live signals back to Earth. We don't even really have that technology to some degree now. So I don't believe it for a second. Allison says, Elon does not talk about going to the moon. He is targeting Mars. Yes, Allison, that is exactly right. Elon Musk is, talking about now that he has a little bit of a little bit more of a voice in what happens. And of course, he is hand in hand with NASA and with he has a lot of government contracts. And one of those is exploring Mars. Are we going to explore Mars? And then, we have a lot of revelation coming out of some of the NASA audits. And that one of them, and I don't know if this is a joke or if it's real, but they've said we've spent I think it was $2 trillion with a hairspray company, because you see those videos of women in space and their hair is sticking straight up in the air. And then they showed simulations of using this super tough hairspray, back when we were younger. What was it called? Something net. I can't remember this. I don't wear hairspray, so I don't know what all the hairsprays are now. But back then we had a hairspray, and it was you put it on your hair. It was like a shell, like an impenetrable shell. And so allegedly, what's coming out of these Doge audits, in part of the reason that made me think about NASA in this way and about the moon landing, is that they allege that NASA has spent trillions of dollars on hairspray so that women in space could look like their hair is floating. Is it true? Aquanet. Was that it? Aquanet? I bet you're right. It was a net. Aquanet. We all know, don't we, ladies? Because we all used it back in the day. I remember the pink and white can. And so Jay says, to fool every person in every country. Did we ever make it to the moon? I'm going to say, if I had to say, I would say no. Then I kind of played a clip of this the other day, but I'm going to play it again for the folks who didn't see it. And this is a man from back in the day who said, you know what? The moon is just plasma. It's not even a hard surface. And I already know, Jay, that you don't agree, but let's take a look
one
at
thing,
this.
You have a theory about the moon, and we expect to be able to get observable facts about the moon fairly soon. What is your theory?
Well, it is by now rather more than a theory. 10 or 11 years ago, I stated to various scientists that the moon is not a piece of rock, but it is a plasma phenomenon, cosmic plasma, and that this fact will eventually be confirmed. I made certain predictions which were already confirmed in 1958, and the situation now is coming close to a complete confirmation.
What will be the result if you're proved to be correct in your theories?
The result will be profound and decisive, because it will give proof that a complete reinvestigation of the laws of nature is necessary. Because if the moon is a plasma, no man will ever land on it. The soft landing attempts will all fail. That means that the mass of the moon is less, far less, than is currently assumed. It's in a different state of energy, and it has far less mass. That means there is no more explanation for the tides. If the moon, for example, had only 1,000th part of its current mass, then the tides would only be 2 inches high under conventional theories instead of sometimes 14 feet. And that means that if it is proved that the moon is a plasma, then all gravitational theories are out, and a new concept of the cosmos and of its laws has to be evolved.
That's not actually an unusual theory. As crazy as that may sound, I know we can all clearly take our cell phones these days and look up and see the moon. But here's 2 interesting facts. And do you guys remember there was the Nikon Coolpix camera? It was a Nikon P1000 Coolpix camera, and there was that big conspiracy that went around that they canceled the making of that camera. They tried to buy them all back. They didn't want anyone to have that camera because that camera could zoom in and see close-ups of the moon. And I've been looking for one of those cameras, and they are not easy to find. And so allegedly they stopped manufacturing it. They tried to recall it. They didn't want people to be able to see into space and see the moon as well as they were doing with their Coolpix camera. Now, you can look that up. I'm not making it up. It's true. Alan says, good morning, Monica. And Stacy. Allison says, I am not sure that theory. I can see craters with my telescope. Absolutely, Allison. And I'm going to definitely talk about that. Cindy says, I don't believe they ever went to the moon. I saw a video where the astronauts refused to swear on the Bible when asked if they ever went. Absolutely, Cindy. And I've seen countless videos of astronauts, and they just don't want to talk about it. And then we had Buzz Aldrin, who, as he got a little bit older, talked about it. And then, the story was, well, he's senile, he suffers from dementia, and he has no idea what he's talking about. So we don't know. But in my opinion, the videos I've seen of him, and granted, there are clips here and there, to me, he seems to say, well, no. And he has flat out said, no, the video that you saw was definitely not us, in space or on the moon. That was an assimilation that took place. And if you watch the movie Fly Me to the Moon, you'll get a good idea of exactly what he was talking about. And now, of course, in that movie, they did go to the moon. It just wasn't filmed. It was filmed in a studio, which many of us would certainly agree with. But yes, you can look up with your cell phone. You can see the moon. You can see craters. I don't know enough about orbs of plasma to know if they have enough solidity to have craters. But one thing that I do know is that if you go out and do some research, you will see that there are a lot of people a lot of scientists who do believe that moons out in the galaxy are plasma. So this theory is not completely irrelevant. Now, is our moon plasma? Is it a solid surface? We don't know. We guess, we can see it. It certainly looks solid. But if that's the case, why aren't we there? Why can't we look up and see a space station anchored to the moon? We don't see that. And there must be a reason why we have never been back to the moon if we were ever there to begin with. Why wouldn't we go back? Why wouldn't we explore the moon's surface? You never hear anyone talk about the moon's surface. Was there ever life on the moon? No one talks about it. And then you have people out there who believe that we've never even been to space at all, that, we could only go up so far into the stratosphere and then we cannot penetrate it. And, so is that true? I kind of have the belief that, yes, we have been to space, and I do believe that there is a space station, but the space station isn't really that far up. Because, there are times when they'll say, oh, the space station is going to be crossing today. And I've seen it myself where I've been out and then you look up and you see the space station drift past. It's not really that far up. So, are we really, really able to explore space to that degree. You know, most of these people, even SpaceX, you know, they're going up. How far up are they going? And then when it comes back to plasma, and wait, Jay says, sorry, basically knowledge shows that's not true. If plasma, you would not have craters. I don't know, Jay. I don't think either you or I are a scientist and can say that a plasma orb wouldn't have craters. You know, I don't know how solid plasma can be. I certainly wouldn't think it would have craters, but at the same time, there's a lot of scientists out there who will say that the moons of other galaxies, other solar systems, absolutely are plasma. So that's not really as crazy of a theory as it seems. And plasma, you know, if you look around, plasma and a star look very similar. If you take your cell phone and you see, this is going off on another tangent here, you know, we've had a lot of sightings of what we believe are plasmoids, orbs of plasma lately all across the world. And that kind of coincided with the drones that we still have no answers on, by the way. We still have no idea what is going on with the drones. But along with those drones, a lot of us have seen orbs. I've seen one myself. I took a video of it. And when I posted the video, all these people, of course, who I don't know, were all saying, no, that's a star. That's just an out of focus star. I'm like, no, it was definitely not a star. You know, I took the video myself over in Effingham, Illinois, from a store parking lot when I was out doing some Christmas shopping. It was definitely not a star. It wasn't that high up in the sky. But when you look at it through a camera, it looks exactly like a star. If you were to take your phone out and film a star, filming a plasma orb looks exactly the same. So there's a lot of different directions you could go, you know, with that way of thinking. And Jay says it's much bigger than you realize, and you're not seeing the station tour. You're seeing the right light reflection of the solar panels. I don't know, Jay. I don't know. I'm going to have to look that up, because I am told that we can see the space station. And so I don't know. Jay says you can see. I'm not sure what you're talking about, Jay. But either way, and yes, there is a scientist for every theory today. But the fact is that we don't know, because everything we've been told by our government has been lies. How do we really know anything is true? Our history books have been rewritten. We've been told lies so that what? So that the government would fund, with your taxpayer money, all of these different programs. All of it could be absolutely fake, just to get your money, just to fund the pockets of the folks in Congress who are voting on these different types of space missions. We just can't trust anything right now. We can't trust it. I don't trust it. You shouldn't trust it. You know, I don't believe that half of what they've said in the space program has actually been true. And if you really think about it, I realize that the stratosphere is a very big place, but how many satellites are up there now? I mean, how do they even get any type of rocket out of the atmosphere with all of those satellites, circling around, and all the space debris that's taking place? It's just insane. And so I don't know. But what I do know is that parts of NASA is on the chopping block. And I do know that DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, is working very hard to see if there was any mismanagement, if there was any spending that was fraudulent, where exactly did all of the money go? Because they found out that the NASA budget is actually, they're spending far more money than what they were ever budgeted for. So where exactly is that money going? How did they get the money? If they're only budgeted by an X amount of, let's say, billions of dollars, then how are they spending nearly their entire budget every single day? And where is that funding coming from? It just doesn't make sense. And Robert says, is Tartaria real or not? History, yes, is questionable. It is certainly questionable, because we just don't know. We've been lied to for so long that most of the history we've been taught may or may not be true. We just can't trust it. And we know this because we see history being rewritten before our eyes. So if they're rewriting history now, and according to whatever narrative they would like, well, then guess what? What have they done in the past? You couldn't convince me that our Earth is only so many thousands of years old. I will never believe that. I absolutely believe that our Earth has been here for billions of years. There have been many civilizations before us. And yes, we have to figure out a way to link that to the Bible, to where the Bible is still true. I'm not going to go against, the teachings of the Bible, the writings of the Bible, and the Christians and before us. However, the earth is very old. We know this through geology. We know, there are many civilizations, but the problem is I've said this before in the show, you have to dig down. And when we dig down, guess what we find? We find civilizations. There are a lot of people who believe that here in the United States, specifically around the Memphis area, the Boot Heel of Missouri, really all the way up into the Cahokia area, that is the true Egypt that is discussed in the Bible. And take that for what you want. You can go off the deep end and do some research on that, including Elon Musk believes that the true Egypt that was discussed in the Bible is actually here in the United States, and Memphis being the capital of ancient Egypt. And there's so much that we don't know about our country. There's just so much we don't know and about our world. And people aren't doing the research that needs to be done, maybe because they don't want us to know. And you see these people that do go out and they do dig and they do these excavations, and then they find, I've seen videos, and you could tell me it's not true, and I certainly don't know. I've not been there for myself. But you see videos of where they've excavated areas and they found cathedrals and mosaics and things that far surpass any history that we are aware of. In fact, that happened right here in the state of Missouri, where there was somebody who went out, it was a farmer, and he found some type of, you guys probably know exactly what I'm talking about, found some type of a tunnel or hole or sinkhole or something along those lines. Well, they came out, they did some excavation, and they found out there was like almost an entire old civilization underneath this man's farm. That happened right here in Missouri. And so I think that there's so much about our world that we absolutely do not know. And history has been rewritten. Now, that there are scholars and there are people out there, probably a lot of folks in our government, who know the truth. Now, why they don't want us to know the truth, I don't know. Why they don't want us to know there were past civilizations, probably very advanced civilizations here on Earth. I don't know why they don't want to tell us what there is to tell us. Cindy says plasma on the moon is not solid at all. It is a very thin, sparse, like gas. I did not know that, Cindy. And I actually know very little about the moon, but I've kind of funny, I've searched for one of those cool pics cameras. Every once in a while, one will pop up on eBay or Facebook Marketplace or somewhere, but they're always really far away. But I'm going to have to take a look at that, because allegedly, if you get one of these Nikon cool pics, it's a P1000, you can see very good, great details of the moon. And apparently our government does not want you to see that. Why don't they want us to see it? I don't know. Lori says, so many videos of very strange noises coming from underground. And Elizabeth, good morning, Elizabeth. Yeah, you're right, Lori. There's noises reported all across the world coming from underground. And some people say, well, that's the tectonic plates moving, or there's a lot of different theories, and then you could, if we were really to go off on a tangent, which we're not going to do today, for another day, we can. But, if you go off on a tangent, you can say, well, look at all of the alleged UFO sightings. Now they call them, of course, UAP sightings, another rewriting of history. And if you go back and look at all these UFO sightings, so many of them involve these craft, whatever they might be, going into the water and not reemerging. So they're going into the oceans, they're going into lakes. I have a story right from Piedmont, Missouri, in Clearwater Lake that this happened. And of course, the Piedmont area is where my father's family, is from. And those stories in Piedmont have been around for a really long time. And they've had, in the state of Missouri, more UFO sightings in that area of Piedmont than anywhere else. I believe, for sure in Missouri, but possibly in the country, which is kind of crazy. And Jay says a pair of cheap binoculars does pretty much the same thing. And Robert says, exactly. I've seen the map of Lake Michigan on the Illinois side, which corresponds to the Israel map. And you'll have to look for it. Yeah, I would be interested in seeing that. And Allison says, get a good telescope. I've had a telescope, But it's like, why get a telescope when I can just have a camera? My son has helped me before adjust my camera settings on my iPhone so that when we were in North Carolina and Georgia, we were taking photos of the Milky Way. It's crazy what you can see with a cell phone. I didn't take any moon photos, but I know with a cell phone these days you can. But either way, we don't know what an orb of plasma looks like. We don't. I mean, who's to tell us what it looks like? Can it become solid enough to where it can have craters? I mean, I wouldn't think of I'm not saying the moon is plasma. I think that's probably highly unlikely, highly unlikely. But it is an interesting theory either way, particularly when you see people talk about, certainly very large plasmoids do exist in our galaxy, and they're very dangerous. And that's why I was really worried and also why I don't think the moon is a large blob of plasma, is because plasma is very dangerous. It will suck out the the mass of a planet. And it's hard to believe that you could lose the mass of a planet, but you can, and that's through plasmoid. So back whenever we were seeing all of the drones and the orbs, I thought, well, that's so strange. Like, why do we have all these plasmoids, running around the country now? These days, we have a lot of great technology, and we can create plasmoids in a lab. It's part of the fusion, different types of nuclear fusion that we play around with and probably shouldn't mess with before who knows what we might do with it. And Jay says, oh, you already read that. So yeah, so I want to show one more little video about NASA, because apparently, NASA, there's a lot of controversy over this. Some people believe that all of the spacewalks and space theater that they believe they see, they think happens in these underwater tanks. Now, we know NASA does have an underwater tank, and we're told that it's for training. I truly do believe it's for training, but there are a lot of folks out there who believe that all of the video we see of spacewalks is actually taking place in these underwater tanks where they allegedly do their training. And it's kind of interesting, but if it's true, if it's not just, satire, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and of course the people they're looking to eliminate over folks that we don't need in these different departments. Allegedly, these folks that do these underwater programs were the first to go. So let's take a look at this really quick. Then we're going to be moving on to some other stuff. Well, the world is theater, so you can just judge for yourself. I will leave it up to you to figure out what you think and determine your own determinations, because I really don't know what to think. There's half of me, 50% of me says the world is all theater. Everything we see is theater. A puppet governments down to history being rewritten, down to things we think we see, but is truly, or no, but is truly just propaganda campaigns that we've heard our entire lives. And is the theory of going into space, going to the moon, is that just more of the propaganda? And I hope we soon find out, because that's a tough one though, because Elon Musk, I think, wants to preserve the sanctity of going to space. And of course, he wants to tackle going to Mars. Maybe we really are going to go to Mars. We will certainly find out, but I'm kind of just stuck in the middle. Part of me absolutely believes, yes, we do go to space. Yes, we do have a rover on Mars. I have a whole other video about that. We'll talk about that a different Friday, of how there are people who speculate that when you see those rover videos that's supposed to be on Mars, that they're actually in Greenland. And I should have played that today, but it was kind of long. And in that video, they show you that, and they show NASA trucks in Greenland. And of course, if you're not there to see the video filmed, is it really true or is it not true? But they claim that you can zoom in on satellite images and see the NASA trucks in Greenland, and that you can zoom in on satellite. And this is what they're doing in the video that I watched. You can zoom in on satellite and you can see the rock formations. And then this person compares them to the rock formations we see on those rover videos. So, life is theater for us. We don't know what's real. You just don't know. There are people who I know question, they question our government, in the world's government, to such a degree that they don't even know if they're looking up in the sky, if they're really seeing the sky or if they're seeing holograms. I mean, that's how depraved things have become in this world, that we just don't know what's real and what's not real. We just don't know. It's a crazy theory, and if you really start thinking about it, it'll really get to your brain, thinking about, is it really a simulation? Is it all just theory? Are we all just little ants running around an ant farm, as somebody's little pets? I guess someday we might find out. Robert says, was our calendar 13 months of 28 days with 13 zodiac signs? Another, you're right, Robert. And when you really start breaking down all of these things, there's really so much to think about and so much to consider. And you really have to start thinking what is real and what is not real. I personally do believe that space is real, that we live in a very large universe, that we are the tiniest minuscule piece of dust in the grand scheme of the universe. And I think there's a lot of things out there that we don't know about, that we may never know. And then there's people who will turn around and tell me, nope, what they see through a telescope is absolutely nothing. It's just grainy video, and they think, or grainy vision, and they just think they're seeing all of this stuff going out in the universe. So there's a side to every part of this, and we're going to do some more talk about it down the road. I think it's just an interesting discussion, because I think so many of us just don't know what to believe anymore. We don't trust the government. We don't trust what they've told us. Now we have Donald Trump again back in office, and he's not playing games this time. That man is not playing games. In his first term, I think he kind of walked on eggshells a little bit, because he knew that it was a tough road to get there, and that he got there because of all of us. We came out in support of Donald Trump in a way that Democrats didn't expect. We caught them off guard. They cheated, but they didn't cheat hard enough. And so therefore we saw in 2020, they went overboard, and they gave those, 18 million extra votes to Biden, which really caught everyone's attention. And I think even Democrats know something is very strange there, that we had all of these extra, nearly 20 million votes for Joe Biden, and just seemingly out of nowhere. And then once again, in the 2024 election, those 18 million anomaly votes gone, so none of it makes sense. Democrats went back to getting the same 64 million votes that they normally get. And so therefore, our government has lied to us for a really long time. Donald Trump is there. The guy is not going to play around this time. He learned that in his former term, that he should have done more to stop the deep state. And he, at that time, again, I think he was not sure how much control or how much power he could exert over the deep state. And then, of course, when they did that to him in 2020, I'm sure he thought to himself, if I ever get back in, I'm just going to tear this place apart. I'm going to rip it to shreds, and we're going to start all over again. And that's exactly what's happening. It's exactly what's happening. And we're going to see a lot of shifts that take place. And I think we all need to start wrapping our head around the fact that things are going to take place that maybe we never expected before. And I think that we have to start thinking about a shift in world power, because I'll tell you what, before Donald Trump was elected into this office, before he sat down in that seat, we were in a world of trouble, headed for bankruptcy, technically probably already in bankruptcy, considering the debt that we are in as a country. And look at the deficit, that Biden took us to. And I'll tell you, things, if Kamala Harris would have won, I think that we would have ended up being very near a third world country. And I think that's exactly where they want us to be. They were building their utopia over in Ukraine, and they weren't too worried about us Americans here. They've plundered enough countries, they've gained the resources they wanted, and we were all just collateral damage. Well, now things are changing, and we were heading down this gosh, dark tunnel of despair as a country, and now we see the light again, and we see things changing. And I think we have to realize the propaganda that's been fed to us most of our lives, all of our lives, for some of us, and that was that Russia is the enemy. Russia is not our enemy. That was propaganda that you were fed from the time you were a little tiny tot up until now, because the government, the deep state, always controlled the narrative, and they always wanted Russia to be your enemy. And so therefore, that's how they kept control of not only us, but much of the world. And, while China, I would certainly say, is an adversary of the United States, I think that's going to change. I think China will eventually become our ally. Donald Trump placing these tariffs against China, reciprocal tariffs against the United States, those are negotiating terms. That just means we need to sit down at the table and say, okay, how can we work out this little issue between us so that we can all just get along? And we're to this point right now where we're moving away from Europe. And most recently, I don't know if this was yesterday or the day before yesterday, Trump gave NATO allied countries an ultimatum. And he said, you have 3 weeks to decide. Are you with us or are you against us? We are going to make a peace deal with Russia, whether you like it or not. And you have to decide, are you sending troops, your troops, Britain, and France into Ukraine? Are you going to support Zelensky? Or are you going to call him out? Are you going to side with the United States? Because we are done with Ukraine. We have stopped all arms sales to Ukraine. We are stopping the funding to Ukraine. Donald Trump has been very clear in calling Zelensky a dictator. Trump's team has stated that Zelensky needs to move to France and vacate Ukraine. We're going to have an election in Ukraine, and we're going to replace Zelensky. Of course, Europe fires back and they say, hey, United States, we're sending troops to Ukraine and we want you to back us up. You don't have to send troops, but if our troops are attacked by Russia, we want you to join the fight against Russia. And of course, Donald Trump says, that's not going to happen. Sorry, Europe, that's not going to happen. Europe is at odds with the United States. We don't share the same goals. Now, when Obama and Biden were in office and they wanted one world government, and with Obama, of course, being the leader, we're going to talk about Obama here in a minute, because I think that man is going to have his day. And he hasn't seen it yet, despite so many other things, but that man is going to see his day. Under a one world government, the vision was that the United States and Europe would rule together, and together they would overpower Russia and China. And what happened is that Russia and China said, hey, we see what's happening and we're going to form our own alliance. And, with some other countries, we're going to call it BRICS. And through BRICS, they have become a very powerful entity. Whether some of you believe it or not, BRICS has become a very powerful entity. And I think Donald Trump sees that, hey, let's do our best to break away from Europe, because Europe has nothing anymore. They don't share our goals. They share the goals of the deep state. They do not share the goals of the Trump administration. And they certainly don't share the goals of the American people. We are done with wokeness, and they are heading towards more wokeness. That's their goal. And even JD Vance, I played the video for you guys a couple of days ago, JD Vance saying that, the first Islamic country that's going to have a nuclear weapon is probably going to be, over in the UK. They're going to be the first Islamic country to have a nuclear weapon. And those are pretty powerful words coming from JD Vance, because he sees what's going on. And Allison says that's what Lindsey Graham wants. It is absolutely what Lindsey Graham wants. And as far as war, he wants the United States to enter into a war against Russia. Europe wants the United States to enter into a war against Russia. But Donald Trump wants peace. He does not want to go to war against Russia. And a lot of it, you could say, is about rare earth minerals, which we're definitely going to talk about. But I think it's our jobs as Americans to realize that the world evolves. We can't stay stuck in those old perimeters that the deep state taught us, that China is our enemy, Russia is our enemy, Europe is our friend. Because I'm telling you, Europe is not our friend. Those folks are not our friends. They would, if they could, they would jail us for our social media posts. I would be in prison right now for doing this podcast. That's what they want. That's what Biden wanted. That's what Obama wants. That's where we were heading under Kamala Harris. We were going in that direction. And thank God for Donald Trump that he stopped them in their tracks and ended this ridiculous censorship. We've got a long way to go, when it comes to censorship. And I know it's hard for people to sit here and think that China could be our ally, that Russia could be our ally. But a lot of that was taught to us. That was taught to you. It was brainwashing, propaganda. And the reason why that happened is because the government wanted to control you. And some of us are kind of breaking free from those controls. And we're saying, hey, we can actually do research. We can actually talk to people now in these countries. And there's been a lot of people coming to a lot of revelations lately that when we were told that Russia was not a free country, that all the media they had, it was all state-controlled, government-controlled media. China, we're told, they have no freedom over there. It's all government-controlled media, and then we talk to people and they're like, well, that's not true. That's just Western lies and propaganda. And Jay, yes, we are Europe's piggy bank. Europe needs us because they don't have money and they don't have power. They have given all of their money and all of their weapons over to Ukraine to protect their own dirty little secrets. We did it to protect our dirty secrets of the deep state. They did it to protect their own dirty secrets. And Donald Trump knows this. And I see us moving away from Europe altogether. I absolutely see that we're going to withdraw from NATO. And even though we've started to withdraw from the UN, that has not been an official break. Now, we withdrew from a portion of the UN, but we are going to completely withdraw from the UN. I absolutely see that happening. I think we're going to ban any UN initiatives in our country. I think we're going to step away from NATO. And, Europe has a decision to make. These NATO allied countries, again, 3 weeks, they have to decide, are you with us or are you against us? And so what is that going to look like when they are against us? And so therefore, we, the United States, do we stand alone? Or do we, I'm not saying join BRICS, or do we say, what, let's move a little bit closer to China and Russia? And when you really think about it and you think about what are our new goals under Donald Trump? What are our goals? Our goals are not wokeness and liberalism. No, and that's what Europe is. So if we move towards Europe and stick with them, then we're supporting wokeness and liberalism. If we move over here to Russia, Russia is a far more Christian traditional country than the United States is, believe it or not. And they have their traditional values there are far surpass what we have here in the United States. There is no wokeness or liberalism that's taking place within the Russian government. And so I see us moving in that direction, but not for that reason, because they have what we want, and that is they have rare earth minerals. And that is our number one goal right now. Remember, there was a time when gold and petroleum were our number one goals. Well, that's not the case anymore. Now our number one goal is rare earth minerals. And guess who has the rare earth minerals? China and Russia, not Europe, not NATO countries, I should say. It is Russia and China. China controls 70% of the rare earth minerals. China has become so heavily involved in Africa because of Africa's rare earth minerals. This is absolutely essential to us progressing as a nation. We have to have access to rare earth minerals. And therefore, we were going to work out a deal with Zelensky about rare earth minerals. As you know, we've talked about that before. That was the deal that was on the table. And then we find out, well, Ukraine doesn't really have these rare earth minerals. They at one time controlled, it was, $15 trillion maybe of rare earth minerals. But what happened is when Russia invaded Ukraine, well, guess what they did? I mean, this probably won't surprise you, but the areas they liberated are the areas of the rare earth minerals. So the Donbass, Luhansk, some of the other areas that Russia now wants and is going to take control of, that's where the rare earth minerals are. It will leave Ukraine with nothing. Ukraine, I've read, has about 2% left of rare earth minerals. That's it. Russia has taken over the land where all of the rare earth minerals are. Remember the Azov battalion that we've talked about so many times? Well, the Azov mine, which is in the Donbass region, that is where most of the lithium is in those mines, and Russia has control of those mines right now. So therefore, Donald Trump very strategically is trying to make a peace deal with Russia. And part of that peace deal is that Russia not only will be able to keep the regions they've already taken, and trust me, yes, it might be about liberation, it's more about rare earth minerals, and Russia will also continue to take the regions that they are on their way to right now. There's 3 regions of Ukraine that right now they are fighting over, and those are also the areas of rare earth minerals. So Donald Trump, being the great negotiator he is, negotiating for us and our future, is making a peace deal with Russia. And he's going to tell Russia that, yes, of course, we're going to work out a peace deal. Zelensky's going to go to France. They're going to have an election. There's going to be a new president, a new sheriff in town in Ukraine, a new government in Ukraine. And the area that Russia already has taken, they can keep. The areas that they aspire to keep, they will have. And then we, the United States, we will get a portion of those rare earth minerals in our for our role in brokering this deal. And we will absolutely, I believe, find a way to work with China, work with Russia and Africa and some of these other BRICS countries, because they control the rare earth minerals. They control almost the entire world supply of rare earth minerals. So we really just have no choice. We have no choice. In Europe, of course, they want Ukraine to keep the rare earth minerals, because if Ukraine keeps the rare earth minerals, then they have access to those minerals. But in order to do that, we have to go to war with Russia and take back the area that Russia has already taken. So that's what this is all really about. It's all about rare earth minerals. And so we, the United States, have decided that we are not going to fight against Russia. We're not going to lose 700,000 of our own men and women fighting on the front lines against Russia. We can't compete with Russia, which some of you may disagree with. We cannot compete with Russia. They have the Oreshnik missile. The Oreshnik missile, believe it or not, it is hotter than the sun. The temperature of the Oreshnik missile is hotter than the sun. We don't have technology that competes with that. We cannot fight against Russia. We just can't do it. And so therefore, we have to side with Russia. We have to side with China. We have to side with BRICS. Doesn't mean we're going to be a member of BRICS, although I think it'd be fairly interesting if we were. But in order to maintain our power and in order to maintain the lives we all lead, we have no choice but to side with Russia and China. And what that's going to leave for Europe, they're either going to have to be with us or against us. And if they're against us, it's going to be a real problem. If Europe, these NATO allied countries, if they do end up sending their troops into Ukraine, and they're just going to further provoke Russia. And if by chance Russia fires some missiles into Ukraine and they strike some of these British troops or French troops, well, we're going to end up with a war on our hands. And it very could end up in a war where we, the United States, find ourselves fighting with Russia against our former allies with NATO. And of course, we will win that war. And, I don't want that to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen, but I see what could potentially happen. And I think we all need to start waking up and realizing that things are changing, and it's changing before our eyes, but you got to open your eyes to see it. Good morning, Michelle. Jay says, moving towards China and Russia is ridiculous. Well, you can say that. And you and I, Jay, we don't always agree on a lot, but whether you like it or not, it's coming. It is coming. Whether you like it or not, it's here, it's coming. Every single day I see it more. And I'll tell you what, Jay, people like you, and nothing, no offense against you, you've every right to your own opinion and how you feel. We've got to stop thinking that old world mentality like they taught us, the propaganda from the Cold War. We've got to stop thinking that way. We've got to undo the brainwashing that all of our lives we were taught that Russia is our enemy. That's just not the case. And the world realizes that it's just not true. Already, Coca-Cola, Subway, trying to get back into Russia, Visa, MasterCard, trying to get back into Russia. Remember when this, incursion into Ukraine first started, all of these companies withdrew from Russia. They all left. McDonald's, they all left. And Russia said, we don't care. We'll be perfectly fine without all of these companies. Now they are lining up at the door trying to get a meeting. And Putin has said, you know what? We're going to take a look at all of these different companies who are now trying their hardest to get back into our economy. And we're going to look at them as a case-by-case basis. And then we will decide what is best for the Russian people. And so far, from what I understand, Coca-Cola and Subway are going to be allowed back into Russia. I read a list of like 100 different companies who are all trying to get back into Russia. And in order to do that, some of these companies, they're going to have to really change their way of thinking. But I'll tell you what, that goes to show how things have changed. All of these countries left Russia. They didn't support Russia when they went into Ukraine. And now they are all flocking back to Russia because you know what? They see the shift. These people who lead these corporations, they're lobbyists. They're hand in hand with Congress. Congress knows what's coming. Our Congress knows what's coming. They see the alliances being formed, and their lobbyists are telling these companies, hey, it's time to get back into Russia. Go get back into their economy because that's where things are going to be. And, every single day, I promise you, you're going to see it. You're going to see the shift. You just got to look for it. You have to open your eyes and look for it because it is coming. And a lot of other things coming too that we're going to move on and talk about. And one of those things is going to be Obama. I have to leave right at 9 o'clock today. So a little bit before 9, I don't want to miss showing you guys and talking about Obama. And I know that's a big shift talking about this. And Allison, I want to see peace. Allison, the best way we have peace is to side with Russia and China. That is our security agreement. That is what's best for our national security. The deep state and our ties to these European NATO allied countries, that has done nothing but brought us war. And speaking of, one thing I do want to touch base on before we move off onto these other things is Lindsey Graham. Then we're going to switch over and talk about Obama because Lindsey Graham has gone behind Trump's back and he has been caught. I don't know how much he was hiding it, but I hope he's the first person that's audited by the Doge group, because I'll tell you what, Lindsey Graham has gone behind Trump's back. He has met with Zelensky in person, and he is trying to broker a deal to where we fund Ukraine with billions of dollars. And, I've always had a lot of contempt for Lindsey Graham. I used to love the man. And then when I realized that he is just part of the deep state, then my brain completely switched gears. And now I see he's just part of the problem. And to go behind Trump's back and to talk to Zelensky in person, face-to-face meeting with Zelensky, something that Trump will not even do, face-to-face with Zelensky and try to work out a deal. Now, this man, if he's trying to work out this deal, there is something in it for him. And he has got to go. He has to go. There's no way around it. Yes, Monica, he has to go. And I don't know what we have to do to make him go, but I think that we need to work on it. And I hope that the Department of Government Efficiency, I hope Kash Patel, I hope the DOJ, I hope they all look into Lindsey Graham and ask, why is this man outwardly, slapping Trump in the face by going and having a face-to-face meeting with Zelensky? And I haven't heard, this just happened, and I haven't heard yet what Trump's thoughts are on this situation, but I would imagine it's not good. I would certainly imagine it's not good. And, Lindsey Graham, Linda says she's so sick of Graham. Me too. Lindsey Graham, he would love to see our children fighting in the war against Russia. I would like to deport him to France, just like we're going to do with Zelensky. Zelensky's going to be forced to move from Ukraine to France. And it's probably, hopefully, would be nice if it happened to Lindsey too, but that's not going to happen. But either way, we will move on to some other things and still lots of things to talk about. Not a lot of time to get into these things, but Pam Bondi had made a speech, and I'm going to show a clip of that for you. And then we're going to talk about Obama. I'm going to show you a video of Suge Knight in an interview. Suge Knight, of course, former record executive in prison right now, very good associate friend of P. Diddy, very involved with a lot of the Epstein files and different things that he's been part of. And he claims that Obama has not only been to Epstein Island, but he's been to P. Diddy's parties. So we're going to jump into that here in just a moment. Good morning, Joe Fry. And but you know what? We know right now we're so close to seeing that Epstein list. Donald Trump has looked over the list. His administration has looked over the list. They've handed it off. The files, from what I understand, are in Pam Bondi's hands. She has seen the list, and we're gonna look at this video.
Scaring bad guys is something Cash has talked about a lot, and you have when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein and the people who are like predators in this country. Yeah. They've been given a pass, and a lot of Americans think these guys have got a pass for a long time, and maybe even are still being protected right now. Where are we at with the Jeffrey Epstein list, the documents? And Cash has made a lot of public statements about this. Where are we at?
I was briefed on that yesterday. I can't talk about that publicly, but President Trump has given a very strong directive, and that's going to be followed.
Wow. Okay. So
a lot of documents.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So people can expect actual movement on this. It's not just empty promises.
Oh, Donald Trump doesn't make empty promises.
Yeah, right.
I think promises made, promises kept, and that's why we're all there to carry out his directive about making America safe and prosperous.
That's right. And we're soon going to find out. I mean, what are we going to find out? That's the key. What exactly are we going to find out? What is in those lists? Whose name is on the Epstein list? Whose face has been seen on the P. Diddy videos? And P. Diddy, I would imagine, is talking. We haven't heard a lot about him. The last I heard about him, he was sick. He was taken to, a hospital to be checked over. I will bet you that man is talking. He's going to do what he can to save himself. He didn't do what he did to make all this money to just sit in prison and let it all go to waste. So that man is going to talk. And eventually we're going to see these files. We're going to see what's happened. What we're told is that when these files are made available to the department, I don't recall all of the names on that department right now. All of those folks that are working on transparency. I know Anna Paulina Luna from Florida. I know Eli Crane is on that list. There's a whole group of folks that are on this board. Well, they have promised the American people that as soon as they receive these files, they're going to release these files before they even write up their reports, before they even investigate. When they get the files, they're going to be released to the same people at the same time they receive them. So this is going to happen probably soon. They promise the American people they're not going to sit on these files. They're not going to go over them with a fine-tooth comb first. They're not going to write up their reports first. They're going to release these files as soon as they receive them. We're going to be looking at these files at the same time they're going to be looking at these files. That's the promise they've made to us. Now, we'll see if they keep it. But that is the promise that has been made to us by these people. And now, is Obama going to be on those files? Who's going to be on the list? Whose name is going to be on the Epstein list? Whose face on those Diddy videos? Is it going to be Obama? We're going to take a quick look. And
that did happen with
we would be having, yes, 1,000%.
You think Obama had anything to do with any of these parties that he had?
Absolutely.
Wow.
You got presidents, you got preachers. T.D. Jakes is one of the biggest black preachers around that everybody loves. Everybody in prison, if they try to get the word of religion, they're not going to the chapel somewhere. They're turning to watch T.D. Jakes. He had to resign from his whole community.
That's right.
You talking about the top of the top.
Unbelievable.
Top.
Man, I got a lot of questions with this guy, but you answered the first one. How do you get away with something like this for all this time with all these people that are allegedly involved? I want to tell you this. I was in the same tier, the same cell that Epstein was on. And Suge, there's no way in hell that guy could have committed suicide on that tier. I was in there for 7 months. There's no way.
And coming from you, I know you didn't know the truth. And I personally didn't think he was going to commit suicide. But the thing is, he had from Oprah Winfrey to everybody on that island. You know, anybody with a weird fetish, and that's what underage kids was on that island, and everybody knew it. So it's not like it's a situation where all of a sudden maybe there's been a talk, and you know as well as I know, like you being on the same tier as him, he probably was going to tell it all. He up himself, you know.
No doubt in my mind at all.
They made sure he didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way he could have done it. You know, first of all, they're watching all the time. There's cameras, and just so happens that one particular time there's no cameras and no one monitoring that. I had eyes on me 24/7 when I was there. So, I mean, I knew it was impossible.
Always.
Yeah.
You have that one time to yourself.
Nothing.
Sorry, I got to turn myself on. Not a minute to yourself in one of these prison cells. Do you really think that Epstein wasn't watched? Every second he was there, and it just mysteriously the cameras aren't off, and mysteriously the guards watching him were taking a nap. No. Now, where is Epstein? We don't know. You know, did he really die? Probably. Because they probably killed him before he could talk. And a lot of people are now speculating based on this Suge Knight interview that Obama ordered him to be killed because he was going to reveal that the top person in our country in the Democrat regime and the deep state was on Epstein Island, that he was at. Of course, now we're hearing stories about him being at these P. Diddy parties. Is it true? Is it not true? There's no way to know. You know, I know there's a lot of information about Obama kind of being thrown around lately, you know, including his old birth certificate. I never thought I'd see that story resurrected again, but there's a lot of talk about his birth certificate being forged, and how a Maricopa City sheriff had a copy, a legitimate, like real copy of Obama's birth certificate and a copy of the former birth certificate, and how he knew it was forged, and that everything we've always thought about Obama is actually true. Now, I haven't seen the birth certificate. I've seen copies of it, you know. I've not had it in my hands. I don't know. But I think there's a lot of reason to believe, and I think it was Allison, you may have said that earlier, that there are no people around Obama in his younger years that have ever come forward to talk about him. And it's true. You know, in some show I was on, back in, I think, 2012, 2013. I don't even remember when it was. I talked a lot about Obama. And at the time, I remember doing a ton of research, just a ton of research. I had a lot more time on my hands back then than I do now, you know, for research. And back then, there was no one, you know, I couldn't find a single student that was taught by Obama. I couldn't find a teacher that taught Obama. I couldn't find any friends of Obama's. It was like he just didn't exist. He just came out of nowhere. And he pretty much did just come out of nowhere. And, you know, a story for another day, because I've only got a couple minutes left for today's show. But, you know, there's a lot of documentation out there that I've been seeing on these back channels that I'm a part of that talk, and I'll play that video for you guys maybe next week, one day, where there is a whistleblower who has come forward from the CIA, and he says that Obama is a CIA operative, that he was groomed by the CIA. And just like we put Zelensky, you know, as the puppet of Ukraine, that Obama was the puppet of the United States, that he was really a CIA operative. His CIA name was Renegade. And you guys can do the research. You can look this all up for yourself. And that he was born in Kenya, and that he was trained to become our president. And that, you know, they really didn't necessarily start out thinking about him becoming our president, but he was an operative. He was conducting these different CIA missions from behind the scenes, and that's just happened to be where it led him. And then they talked about other, you know, potential presidents we've had in the past that could have been CIA operatives that we don't even know about. And this person didn't know either, but this person said they were part of the program. They knew that Obama was CIA operative Renegade, and that he was just a puppet president of the United States. And that's why he didn't write any of his speeches. That's why he didn't write any of his executive orders. You know, all these things were done for him by folks like Soros and other people in the deep state. So those are, you know, definitely some things to think about. And Allison says that Maricopa sheriff showed 9 points of forgery. For absolutely so. And I have the copies of that, Allison. I'll have to post those or send it to you if you haven't already seen it. So there's a lot to talk about. You know, my biggest point with Obama is that we know about the Biden crime family. Well, much of this occurred obviously in 2014, put into play maybe in 2013 under Obama's watch, but yet no one blames Obama. No one ever brings up Obama when they talk about the Biden crime family. Well, Joe Biden was the vice president. So clearly, the president at the time, Obama, knew exactly what Joe Biden was doing. Of course, he knew. Did he receive kickbacks? How was he part of this? Or because he was a puppet, did he really, was there nothing he could do or say? He's just part of the theater like everybody else. So those are some, things to think about. Before I head out, I've just got a couple of things to go over. Joe Fry says, I saw Obama's birth certificate is back in the news. It is back in the news with more proof the document was a fraud. Remember the gay guy who confessed that he had a sexual relation with Obama? I do remember that guy. But my thing is the birth certificate, I don't know. I believe if he really is a CIA operative and his code name was Renegade, of course they would forge his birth certificate. They would have to in order for him to become president of the United States. And the more I hear about this theory, certainly the more I believe it. Now, as far as people coming forward saying I had a relationship, blah, 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 I don't know. There's a lot of hearsay out there with different people. I don't know one direction or the other. But I do know that I think that there's so much fraud that has taken place in this country to deceive the American people. We'll never know what's right. We'll never know what's true. And there's all those rumors now about Obama and Michelle not being together anymore. I've heard that was because of the chef that drowned out at Martha, I think it was at Martha's Vineyard, and that Obama was actually there with him. He was the other person in the water, which, by the way, has never been revealed to us. That story just disappeared. The chef passed away, he drowned in 4 feet of water or something like that. None of that story made sense. And there's a lot more that is probably to that. And will we ever know? I don't know. But one thing I want to add, I've got like 1 minute left, is that some of the new Doge uncoverings, $2 million slated, $2 billion slated to go to Stacey Abrams of Georgia. Why? We don't know. I just saw a flash up on my phone come across that they're going to let go of fire 6,000 IRS employees. The IRS is going to be abolished. That's going to happen. It's going to be restructured, abolished. We're going to build it up from scratch. It's going to be called something else. And lots more to talk about next week. One more thing I wanted to add is, Doge took out they wiped away $370 million of fraud out of the Department of Education. I never did get around to mammograms, and I don't have time now. But next week, we're going to talk about mammograms. And a lot of people believe mammograms actually cause cancer, that women go in, they get a mammogram, and the mammogram either causes the cancer there to spread or it causes cancers they never had. So we'll get into that on Monday. ATF Chief Counsel Pamela Hicks was fired by Donald Trump. So that has happened. We're going to see a restructuring of the ATF. Much needed. Well, guys, that's it for me today. I hate to run, but I got a phone call in 1 minute. Look forward to talking to you guys on Monday. Hope you guys all have a really fantastic weekend. And I'll be hopefully posting some good stuff over social media this weekend. Please create that account on X if you don't already have it. One of these days, I would like to see all my watchers, all the people watching the show on X, and we'll forget that Zuckerberg. But have a good weekend, everyone. I will see you Monday.